So this session is going to be focused on the application of multiple self-organized drones and debating if they're the answer to scaling the future of commercial operations. So there's quite a few things to unpack there, and we'll try and do that, but fundamentally we want to try and understand if this can enhance our ability to build new sort of wide-scale UAS services. This could include things like monitoring of industrial assets. It could include crop inspection, could include search and rescue type of applications, and many more things that could be enhanced, we think, by using multiple drones. So my name's Steward March, and I lead our aerospace activities at Cambridge Consultants, and that includes a wide range of UAS type of projects. So as well as technical and strategic advice, we provide full design, development and test services with a focus on sort of innovative, groundbreaking projects. And we've partnered with some of the most well-known and ambitious companies in the UAS world to help them succeed and deliver new and exciting services and capabilities. So I'm joined today by a distinguished panel of leaders from across the industry who all bring some real-world expertise to the topic that we're going to discuss today. So if we could just start with some sort of personal introductions and maybe introductions to your company or organisation and what you do, that'd be great. Thank you, Eszter.
Okay, hi everyone. I'm Eszter Kovács. I'm a co-founder of DroneTalks. The talk show. Listening and capturing industry leaders' thoughts about revenue generation, investment, regulation, standardization. So I'm listening daily basis, C-level decision makers' views, and that's one thing what I do daily basis. Another thing, I'm owning an invitation-only closed-door event, focusing on connecting city infrastructure people, government, and C-levels, executive decision makers. And Europe, it's a closed-door event where we come together once a year and trying to understand what's next, So basically, these are the people who I'm listening to every day, and I'm hopefully can share their thought with you today here at stage about autonomous and automation. Thank you. Thank you for the invitation.
Perfect. Thank you, Eszter. Laurie.
Stuart, thank you to Cambridge Consultants for having us here today. I'm with MatrixSpace. My name is DeMatteis. I'm the Chief Growth Officer. We unlock BVLOS, whether it's on a drone or whether it's on the ground. I've been in the industry now for over 4 years and have been in high technology for my entire career on the leading edge front. And I'm just thrilled to be back in Amsterdam, part of the initial founding team of Interaction. So it's great to be back, and it's great to see where we can take this for the country.
Yeah, so Amanda Boekholt, I'm really also glad to be on this panel with all of you. It will be really interesting. I'm on the regulator side, so I'm working for the Federal Office of Civil Aviation in Switzerland. I'm leading the legal implementation of U-Space in Switzerland as well. And we're not all, so FOCA have this leading role to do the rulemaking, but we are also here to listen to the industry, to the operator, to understand your needs and try then to implement and to know. Now I'm here to understand how to scale and how we can help you to scale. So this is why I'm happy to be here, so to hear also your thought and to help you to realize it.
Perfect. Thanks, everybody. We're also we're expecting to be joined by Chris Forster from Altitude Angel, who unfortunately has had a few travel issues this morning. So I'm keeping an eye open for him. Hopefully, he'll be able to join us in time to give the UTM perspective on all of this. So I just wanted to start it by sort of painting a picture to sort of understand what we're proposing and what we're going to be discussing today. So we're exploring if a group or a squadron of drones. We try to avoid using the word swarm because people associate that with different kind of the firework display type of things that we're definitely not proposing. But we're going to explore if collectively we can achieve more with multiple drones than we can with a single drone. So in terms of achieve more, what does that mean? This could be defined as more functionality. It could be more resilience or reliability, or maybe it's just faster at doing things with multiple drones versus one. I think Agriculture is probably a good example of that. If you've got a field and you want to inspect it, it's obviously quicker to do that if you can do it with 10 drones instead of just one. Another good example is things like BV loss communications. So there are, there's the potential, if you've got multiple drones, to have one kind of acting as a communications hub, and then forming a mesh network with other drones to be able to operate in sort of comms-denied environments. So just a couple of ideas just to sort of set the scene. The squadron approach also allows us to think about the concept of mission objectives rather than the individual flight plan for a drone. The focus is on the mission. If we can add intelligence into the system, so the squadron is self-organizing within the parameters of the mission, and can be controlled or monitored by a single operator, there's also a benefit to being able to do that as well. So hopefully you get the picture. You can see the possibilities that we think a multiple collaborating drone type of environment can unlock and enable. So on that sort of topic, to get things rolling, just thinking about some of the use cases. First question for the panel is, what use cases do we think can be or cannot be achieved with single drones that might be achieved with multiple cooperating drones? And what's the potential, the business value that could be unlocked? Who wants to have a first go at that one?
I'll take it on.
Thank you.
All right. So many of you may be aware that 91.113 was just unlocked in the United States last week by the FAA. That's for critical infrastructure. And not only are the use cases of what Stewart just mentioned, but there's use cases greater and beyond that. And that happens to do with fire safety, that happens to do with public safety. And even what's happening right now in California with the fact that we are having massive amount of floods and we don't know that the levees are breaking. If we could have multiple drones inspecting the areas, we could be saving a lot of lives and a lot of agriculture that's going to really hamper the food supply for the next 6 to 9 months. In fact, they're even thinking maybe it will go further because of the contamination. So it's very imperative that we start to inspect these levees before before the snow starts to melt. By being able to use multi-use drones, we change that paradigm and now enable us to get quickly ahead of what's happening and being able to spot the challenge areas and start to fix the dam situations. Also, you might be very well aware in the press and the news of the very devastating fires that have happened in the state. Unfortunately, when the fires happen in the state of California, you can only have helicopters going between about 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. That isn't enough to see where the fire is growing and to see the changes that is happening in a real-time basis. I think drones change that. And I think that we need to start to embracing this, not just a commercial front to drop pizzas, but to really help citizens of the world to help better their day-to-day lives.
Some good examples and use cases there. And Eszter, you talk to a lot of people.
Yeah. I think the key is in differentiation when we talk about this. We cannot talk, in the same way if a small drone, a medium-sized drone, or an eVTOL. So when we talk about autonomy, this is the whole way how I'm thinking about. Yes, I just said by 2028 there will be autonomous, operations. That's their goal. And they said, as of today, they're trying to puzzle together a piece of autonomy, and they're trying to understand step by step how to puzzle it and what you need to do by that 2028. And now we're talking about the small drones, right? I'm not talking about the big drones. So this is the state of Europe. We're trying to understand now the small drones by 2028, how they can operate. And I think it's not even a question. Small drones solves problem. Pipeline monitoring, industrial use cases, where people don't want to go in, but they need continuous service, They need to have an automated drone to dealing with that continuous service. Go do the service, lands back and go again and again. This is the future, and of course, after scaling for that, there I don't see a problem for these use cases and the small drones. I think the question is, when we talk about, autonomous solutions in the future, for bigger drones, how do we do it? Or what would we need to do puzzling today together towards to that and building it to the system already? This is how I think as of today about those use cases.
Very interesting. And I guess, from Amanda's perspective, welcome, Chris. Glad you could join us.
Thank you very much. Apologies for being late. I think this accelerates the need for automation in aviation.
Yeah, with multiple drones.
Indeed.
Yeah, very good. So, Amanda, if you just want to comment, I was just wondering if you've got any are people coming to you and asking about?
Yeah, so actually in Switzerland, we do not receive a lot of requests of application for multiple drone operation. Actually, our main application for multiple drone operation are drone show. But you just said that it could be really useful for crop spraying operation, for example, and we have plenty of operators doing crop spraying operation in Switzerland, in the Canton valleys, and I mean, I think it's also, if we change the point of view, I'm not sure that they are also ready to use multiple drone operation. I think the technology is probably there, but the ecosystem and the system is not ready at all. And also, as you said, it is right, Esther. I mean, the regulation is also not ready at all. Also, to permit autonomous flight, we're for now only talking about automatic flight, and we're getting there step by step. But it will not happen tomorrow. I think we have all these pieces of the puzzle, and we now need to put them all together to allow those kind of flights, and then to scale and to allow drone operators to go full autonomous.
So the demand is there, but there are a few hurdles that we've got to overcome.
We are waiting for the demand. I think there is a demand, but the drone operators are also waiting to something to happen, actually.
Yeah, very good. Thank you.
It's like
The
chicken and egg.
Exactly.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep.
So I'm going to put Chris right on the spot.
Thank you.
And the question is, what use cases can you think of? That multiple drones enable that single drones maybe can't do. But perhaps you could give a bit of an introduction before you dive in and answer the question.
Thanks very much. I'm Chris Forster, so I'm Chief Operating Officer of Altitude Angel. We're an aviation technology company. We do. Our mission is to integrate drones safely into the airspace, and I use the word integrate very importantly. It's not about segregation, it's about bringing everything together and doing it in a safe way, and we build software that helps that happen. I guess to answer your question, I think the use of multi-use drones can be thought of at a number of levels. I think the ones that come to mind right now for me are things like agriculture, which I think someone was picking up as I joined, but also things like search and rescue, where you want to have a really coordinated response. You want to accelerate the time to deliver an outcome, whether it be photographs or in that case finding a person. But I also think in the macro scale, we should also think about coordinated fleets. As we go forward, things like delivery drones will need to work together. It's not just going to be an independent drone doing point A to point B. It will integrate to some degree, and we need to think of that bigger level as well. For me, I think the use of automation is critical, because I don't think at the moment we're in a position to break that one-to-one link between a drone pilot and a drone itself. So we're going to have to use automation to make that happen. Initially, breaking it so it's one person, one pilot controlling multiple drones, and probably this multi-use fleet of drones would be the first instance where we can make that happen. But we shouldn't do it sequentially. This should all happen in parallel to accelerate things as quickly as possible.
Yeah, but may I react on this? I think the point is you don't need to always automate. I think we think this is the future and we must do. My message is you need to assess the use case, and you need to understand if you really need to do it or you cause yourself more problems, than solutions. But it is as of today. I'm saying as of today, there are already pieces in the puzzle which you can automate and you can go towards to that. You don't need to do the whole system. You need to choose smaller parts, puzzles. This is how, I see about this. And you need to start to do that process. But, if you go to a regulator or you go to your client and say, tomorrow I'm going to automate everything with 5 million drones, they can say, wait. So I'm not sure, always this is the right way to do, or build up slowly and get into there with time. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
What's your take on that? But not everywhere the answer is yes, I think.
I agree. I think, well, firstly, it's going to be a journey. We're not going to turn off the airspace on Friday and turn it back on Monday and have a fully automated sky. That's just not going to happen. But the point you make is very important. I think that there are use cases today where huge value is going to be delivered from drones that can be done with a pilot. And some of those missions will continue to happen into the future. But we need to allow those missions, human piloted missions, to be integrated with those automated missions as we go forward.
Yeah.
I think it's, if we take one example, if you take kind of a police force which might be going to send a drone to an incident, would we expect the first responder in that instance to be a trained pilot? I think the use of automation there is really to help that first responder get eyes in the sky as quickly as possible, whatever their role may be on the ground. So having a level of automation being gradually introduced, I think, is the way we unlock this economy.
I don't think the industry is ready for complete autonomy and complete, multiple drones, but I do think that we have technology that's either coming right on the cusp of coming out or here today that can take the steps that you're talking about. And I think, Eszter, that's where we need to start to take. But what we haven't had it as an industry is the partnership between the regulatory, between the states or the country entities, and a place to start to show this. And I think that is starting to form a groundswell, literally here in Europe, and will start to take off and showcase for the global world what is the art of the possible and where is that art going to. And once we do that, then I think you see a comfort level. I think you continue to see technology involvement and an evolution, and you see the steps of an ROI return that enables the whole full circle to keep continuing.
Maybe one should not forget is also public acceptance. Because we are all here working also for the industry in the ecosystem, we know what is going on, but the public doesn't always know, and they do not always trust new technology. We're also hearing that they're talking about having one pilot on an aircraft right now. And if you say to the public that this will be full autonomous, even drone, that the human is not really on the loop anymore, how will they react? So the industry is not ready yet. I think we're working toward it, but the public is not ready at all. And without the public acceptance, the economy it's not viable.
Do you think that's just a question of time? Does it just take time for people to accept that, or are there things we can do as an industry to sort of accelerate that?
I think it's a matter of communication. Time, obviously, but communication. Industry needs to go out and explain what you're doing. Regulator also, we need to support the industry, because if the regulator is supporting you, then the public will definitely easily accept what is going on outside. So I think we all need to work toward this, toward the public acceptance, to create this new market, and time will also help us, definitely.
Yeah, it's an interesting point. I think the whole thing about public acceptance, I think there's a lot of it is about communication is a big part of that, but also selling the benefits. I think people are generally a lot more accepting of things if they can see tangible benefits, and they're instantly more accepting of that.
But we're seeing in the States, at least, a very nice groundswell of public acceptance, right? Whereas even pre-COVID it wasn't, but during COVID and now, you're seeing that the cities and the towns are saying, let's get this moving. Yeah. Right? We don't want to see, literally in front of my house, and there's a row of 20 homes, I see, on the course of a day, 15 delivery trucks between FedEx, UPS, and Amazon. And where I live, Amazon's delivering every 1 hour, 1 to 2 hours, no additional fee. So, you talk about congestion, you talk about sustainability, you talk about green. There's got to be a different way than watching all these guys go back and front. Now, they have, in my development, because we're a cluster of 3,500 homes, they have ports that would enable very easily doing some of these deliveries. So again, it saves lives. It takes the congestion off the streets and the neighborhoods. There's a lot of positives. So people are starting to take that.
So I'm sure, I'm not sure actually, if you read, but EASA published a report on it, and they checked in Europe, and the outcome was 83% was positive about drone adoption. 83%. They had two main concerns. One of them was the noise, and the second one was safety. So what's going to happen if that drone going to crash to my window, because it lose, command and control. So that's the only two concerns as of today in the public about drones. Nothing else, and not privacy, not security, nothing else. 83% said yes. And I think what we can take away from this report is that people are open for innovation, they open for digitalization, they want it, and as soon as it becomes the norm, they even forget about it. Like, in Zurich airport, between two terminals, I am sitting in a train in a self-driven solution, right? There is no driver there. Yeah. It's totally automated train, and no one cares. You are on a phone, you sit on it, you don't even know if there is not a driver there. So, and I just arrived there with this train. So it became a norm. No one even questions it anymore, right? So I think that's an solution, and ground transportation did a lot on it. So we should learn, from the ground transport examples. We should go and talk to them. We should understand what they did, and adopt it very quickly to our industry. So I think this is also very important, this cross-functional discussions, because as of today, we're talking to our own self with the regulator. This is our little environment. But where are the transport officers? Where are the road people? Where are the smart mobility? Where are the road traffic managers whose roads we will free up with air deliveries? I want to talk to that people who is designing the smart roads. And, we should talk to them and say, look, I'm going to free up with autonomous drones your roads. You don't need to maintain your roads 20% less next year because of my drones.
Yeah.
Let's do this. I'm not sure. Maybe I'm here a little bit, outspoken, but I'm missing those people. I'm missing those people from the discussion.
I think it is, and it's back to this is more about embracing this rather than accepting it. You should be, all those advantages you mentioned factor into this. So what are your thoughts on, we've talked about safety, acceptance, reliability. Do we think that having multiple drones on a mission enhances or potentially makes systems safer and more reliable than a single drone?
Well, I think with the new technology coming out, it is. Because I think it will actually add and enhance the entire, I don't want to call it experience, but the ability to perform and do the tasks.
So what sort of things are you thinking? So you're thinking multiple...
Well, I'm thinking multiple drones, and I'm thinking about the ability to communicate at the edge and bring that intelligence together with multi-sensor technology that hasn't been here up until today. And so I think that is a game changer as far as enabling this and unlocking it.
So you potentially having different types of sensors, I guess, on different drones within a
different types of sensors,
squadron.
All bringing together with AI and machine learning to give you your identification and your classification and the communication between everything without having to go to the cloud. That, I think, enables and unlocks.
Okay, so it sounds good from a technology perspective. What about a sort of a legal or a regulatory perspective?
So having multiple drone operation, for us, it's like we will give one authorization for multiple service doing by a drone. So it will be less authorization, so less work for us. So we'll fully support this, and we're really happy if one operator is coming to us and really asking us to work with them, because we have the SORA methodology that is already existing, but for now we're missing this multiple drone operation, and we don't have a consolidated risk assessment to do this, and we are really interesting and really pushing to go to this direction as well. So we're waiting for one operator coming to us, and if we can work toward this and find a solution and a way toward this, we're fully in.
Very good. And from a UTM perspective?
Yes, so I think just maybe to pick up, you talked about reliability and safety. I think the reliability or the chance of the mission being successful is absolutely more likely with multiple drones in some use cases, because you're going to have to accelerate the time to deliver the result. Yeah. I wouldn't say the reliability of the physical drone or the safety of the drone should be any different, actually. I think the actual hardware needs to be safe, with risks mitigated as far as possible to actually get into the airspace. I think that's really critical. With regards to the sensors, I do think there is a place for some sensors on the drone, but let's not forget they will add weight. They will add consumption of battery or power. And actually, we need to consider whether the actual location on the drone is the best place for all sensors, or whether we put some on the ground. I think that if we consider the aspects of artificial intelligence and machine learning, the question I have, that's very much in the autonomous space, whereas I think today, at best, we're going to get to a highly automated sky. I think, and a question back is, how does the regulator feel? How does the legal side feel about a non-deterministic algorithm deciding what the drone does next? Certainly, when we put safety cases together in the past, you need to explain what the logical steps the drone's going to take in the event of certain things being reached, so that you can say what's going to happen next, rather than letting the machine itself decide.
I mean, for now, it's a use case that we never faced. So we have multiple ways to do it. So we have still this SOAR methodology. We have now new regulation in place. We have the use-based regulation. We have the 945, 947 regulation. But those regulations are not scalable for the kind of operation, that the full autonomous operation that you want to see. So my question is to you: how can we help you to support this? And what do we need to change in the regulation to support those kind of operation? Use-space is now happening. We are now fully implementing use-space, but this use-space UTM services for now, it's a great step toward automation, to also machine learning and so on. But we need to go higher. We need to go to do more. And I think then we also need to talk about digital flight rules, for example. We need to have digital services, and we need also not only the drone that needs to change, but also the whole system, also the ATM process, not only UTM, but at some point we need to merge both if we want to have full automation system.
Yep.
So I think this is how we will learn out of it, but I don't have the answer. I think I don't have the solution, but if we want to have the solution, we all need to work together. Not only the drone operator and the regulator, but also the service providers, the technology providers, the UTM providers. So don't have your answer, but I'm happy to discuss it and find the solution.
Thank you. And I think for us, we do see it as a gradual journey. I certainly don't see autonomous drones working completely independently or unaffected by any other systems. I think that's not reality. I think we need the UAS, the drone itself, to be able to talk to the UTM in whatever skies it will be, and have the ability to coordinate and orchestrate what's happening in the airspace. And I think that's really important when we talk about multiple drones as well. If we think about a single unit of maybe 10, 15 drones, potentially we're closing the airspace to others that want to use it. We need to work together, because you might have this search and rescue example where you have 15 drones looking for someone, but what happens if you want to have an air ambulance or some other aviation entering that picture? You need to integrate with those other systems. They can't kind of come together and just react to the last minute. They need to be coordinated, they need to be orchestrated to navigate in the right way. And
for example, the SOAR methodology for us, if we're talking about drone show, for us a drone show with multiple drone, it's considered as one operation and one drone. We do not consider that there's like maybe 10 drones. So the SOAR methodology, we need to scale it if we want to allow this kind of new multiple drone operation.
You must talk to a lot of people about safety cases and ways to try and improve reliability, safety, and everything else. Do you think it's a
I just talked to Yasa about this topic, and I can echo him. Giuseppe is leading the autonomy and no pilot initiatives in Yasa. Very interesting guy. I talked to him. He's definitely better than me in it. But the takeaway is, as Yasa think about it, this is a complex puzzle. As I said, I use this puzzle for a reason, because they say regarding like liability, it's like there is no one person who's going to be liable, not the operator going to be liable. They said to me, depend on what is your service and what you're going to provide in this whole story for the autonomous drones, you will be liable for that. So they think, and they're trying to understand if the software provider will be able to provide, liability for that software data, providing to the autonomous, solution. And this is how they think about it. They want to kind of break it down, So as of today, I don't see they put the liability on the operator, but they want to break it down a little bit, and trying to understand who is liable for what, for the autonomous systems, I'm talking only about those ones, Regarding integration airspace, it's a hot topic every year, UTM, ATM integration. We need to digital the sky. I have one takeaway here, I think, which is really, really important. We need to design and manufacture drones and softwares which can operate today, but with the capability to go towards to the self-organized autonomous drones. So it could tick both boxes, And I think the companies are the smart who choose this approach, For example, I just talked to AVE, the AVE Air Mobility. They said, as of today, they designed a full autonomous drone or eVTOL, device, but they have a pilot on board, Right. They have a pilot, and they are totally going with the pilot, but they're capable to remove the pilot anytime, put 2 more seats in it, save cost, and go, And I think this is what I call smart solution, You're not designing something for the future, you're not designing something for the present, but you're designing something which can be modified based on the regulation, And I think that is my advice here to everyone. Make a smart solution and don't complain about the regulation. Adopt your solution towards the change of the regulation. So, yeah, this is my view on it,
Yeah, and I would agree. I think that it's inevitably going to go that way, and it's a question of when rather than if. But so, just on the topic of sort of autonomy, I think the one thing that has got to happen for us to enable this, I think, is collecting data and information from the flights that are piloted or single drone. So are we as an industry expecting any pushback on the collection of data that's maybe needed to train artificial intelligence, for example? Is it a sensitive subject? I'm guessing Altitude Angel you interface with a lot of users, different systems. You've got access to flight information and other sensitive data. Are there concerns?
I think that, let's take a step back, because there will be data needed whether you use autonomy or not. And I think, as I made it clear earlier on, I don't think autonomy is there yet in full, but the highly automated type system will be, and we need to provide evidence as part of any safety case we put forward to the aviation authorities to prove that the system works as it's supposed to. I think you can always argue that it's going to be competitive parts of the industry. I suspect that the logistics companies probably don't want to share with each other's flights, because it might show customer addresses, delivery locations, and package loads, etc. But I think where you have this kind of conflict commercially, you need to take the commercial aspect out of it and push those services down to be operated by a regulated entity of some sort. And that's, I guess, where the SIS type services defined by USpace fits in. So that you have that entity in place, whether it be a CAA or an ANSP, that's able to run those services without the commercial conflict, and then we can use the data through those services as the regulation allows.
Yeah, yep. And what about, I guess, from your perspective, Amanda?
So we're looking for data. Because we're talking now about a digital way autonomous system. So we are craving for data. We just hired a data analyst because we want to understand what is going on. And we need to understand what is going on if we want to scale up. Because without data, how do we know what is going on, what is working, what is not working? We are not looking for personal data at all. We just want operational data. What is happening also also not only on the UIS operator, but also on the service provider, USSPs, for example, the ANSP. We really want to have the data to analyze them and then to see what is possible and how can we help the industry to grow. And I think those data, sharing data, even if you all have some different commercial purpose and interest, I mean, if you want to build something and to build a market, you need to share those data. And then you can enhance competitiveness, you can enhance the market. But first, you all need to work together, share the data, and then we can create something together. So we're fully craving for data. If you want to give us the data, your flight plan, how many hours you're flying, we really want to have this to understand your needs, your expectation, what is happening, and what we need to change, also in the regulation.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I guess, Laurie, from your perspective, for sensors, data is a key part of that.
So data's always been a key part, but I think in the United States, there's the discovery issue. And so when I was at Iris Automation, what we did is we supplied hours and hours, almost $10 million worth of data to the government, but it was all under proprietary so that people could not take it, because then that's our intellectual property. The same thing when I think about us, I want to take a second back, and you talk about starting to piece part. Well, what's happening with the AI and intelligence, and we can't hold the operator responsible. We hold the operator responsible in driving a car. We hold the operator responsible in flying a plane. I don't know why in this industry we want to piece part and say, well, whoever made the parachute has a responsibility versus whoever made the software. I think we've got to look at this as a holistic system, and we need to take whoever's running that operation as that responsible party, and then we can look at what was the underlying causes underneath, right? And then you can reassign liability. But we're not going to get anywhere if you've got 20 people in a room trying to make a decision around a single drone system, or structure, as I like to call it. Those are a couple of things I want to say. I think data is important. We have a philosophy at MatrixSpace where it's open, and I think that is where the industry needs to take it in order to make it grow. But not everyone has that same philosophy. So.
Yeah, I want to say two things. A is we talk about data. This is, again, we need to break down what is the data about, what is the minimum data sharing level, what we must do as an industry to move forward. We need to identify that minimum data sharing level and share that data, not more. or I think this is what I hear from everywhere, and I don't need to share every single data what you collect, right? You just need to understand the minimum viable data what you need to share with others. And the other, I told this example already to my panel leaders. I'm just back from Dubai. I was at the World Police Summit, and data was one of the hottest topics at the Police Summit. And I think I told you at the call before is that the police told me is that I have a biggest problem with the data. I want to use drones, but my problem is the data, because I have a law in Dubai. It's like a law. I cannot get out the police data out of the city, the Dubai region, right? Mm-hmm. So here the question comes. Think about all the solution, where the data goes from the drone, right? It goes to the cloud mostly. So it goes to America, goes to China, goes to Japan, and they are like, I just physically cannot get out this data, the police data, So think about that, We are all want to automate, and we want to do this cloud system. And I have one of the biggest users there saying, I cannot use none of your drones because the data goes to Japan, America, China. And I'm like, I want to shop here a drone for the Dubai police, and I cannot.
Yep.
And I'm like, do you hear me? Like, So this is what the industry needs to solve now. So
do you think can that change? Do you think is it a question of adding extra layers of security, for example, or?
No, it's about privacy. It's about well, to your point, it's the layers of security. But Dubai has always said that. Whenever I've worked in the Middle East, it's always been we do not have our data leave, and it's almost copying the EU privacy laws as well. But there are ways of not having to take it to the cloud, and there are technologies available today that enable you to do that. Not everything has to go to the cloud, and it still can be affordable.
Yeah, but come up with solutions for your, come on, you want to sell to the police. Like, this is their pain point. So the solution should solve their pain point,
Right.
right? That's my message here. And I'm not the one who want to sell to the police, you know. I'm totally fine with my business, you know. So, but I think that's the message here. I'm not sure. That's what I think about data, you know.
Yep.
I think it's really important that we have different classifications of data, because I think
Exactly.
in the case of Dubai, it's a great example where perhaps almost everything can't be stored in the cloud. It all has to be local. But actually, I think if you dig down on that, I think it's the personally identifiable information, the PII, that they're most sensitive about. And I mean, how a system, whether it be a drone or whether it be a UTM system, is architected, the ability to pull out components of it and localize those specifically, I think is great, and I think that will support many customer objectives. But I think if we say nothing can be run or stored in other geographies, even if they are today in a non-automated manner handled in other geographies, then I think that's going to be a problem that's going to slow the industry down. So we need to work together with, in this case, Dubai or whoever it may be, to kind of help guide them on that journey.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, some interesting aspects there. So, just thinking about some of the challenges we've talked about. I think we talked about the possibility of multiple drones in a squadron, whatever you want to call it. I think we've kind of suggested that it only really works if you don't have that one-to-one relationship between the operator and the drones. So, from a UTM perspective, can the UTM systems handle that sort of concept where you've potentially got just one person controlling, if it's maybe 10, 20 sort of drones on a single mission?
Yes.
Does the system scale to accommodate that?
The system absolutely does. It's really important from day one. It's certainly, for our perspective, we knew many millions, if not billions, of drones will be used in the future, and that's actually why we built the architecture based on the cloud, highly reliable, highly scalable, and it's ready to take that. But I mean, in your specific example of multiple use case drones, I'm going to avoid the word squadron because might not be the best term, but kind of cooperative fleets, if you like.
Yes.
For me, you're going to have a ground control station or a pilot probably centralized for your fleet.
Yep.
And what we're saying is treat each of those drones through the ground control stations, individual drones in the UTM, if you want to be able to maximize the use of that airspace. And if there is a need to maximise the use of the airspace. And in the case of something like a light display, I can't think of a good example, but a light display, for example, no one else is going to be using that airspace at the same time, so treat it as one. So the UTM should be able to handle both scenarios, but obviously the scenario which is going to have the most business benefit, the most public service, is probably going to be the one where they're identified individually and integrated into the airspace.
And from a sort of legal and regulatory perspective, a fleet of aircraft treated pretty much the same as a single?
So for now, yes. For example, if we're talking about UTM, use space services, one of the core services is strategic conflict detection, so UAS flight authorization, who does not permit other operation in the same volume at the same time. So it means that you will have your fleet, you will have your squadron of drones flying in one specific volume of the use-space airspace, and you know that there will be no other drone operation flying in the same volume at the same time. So for UAS to UAS, I mean, this is one of the solutions. Then you will receive traffic information, so the operator will be behind it and see traffic if there is man-traffic information. So then he will need to take action to either land all your drones. This is my only question also to all of you is that if you have multiple drones, how can you be sure, how can you ensure the safety if there is a manned aviation flying in the specific use-space airspace, for example, you see that there is traffic information, how can you be sure that there is no level failure of the service or failure of the drone? How can they all land together if they are not performing? And this is my question for you, because I don't have the answer. You are the technology. You know, you're the engineer.
And I think I'm not an expert in the swarms directly, but I think that if they're treated as individual drones within the UTM, then the individual entities that will be removed from the airspace, either through a coordinating drone or ground station or individually, and then it's the same as if you had two independent drones.
Right. You have your avoidance maneuver that's programmed in. right? So however that's programmed in, if it's a whole group that's going to go drop or whatever it's going to do, or if it's going to be individualized based on where the obstruction or the vision is. So each of those drones would take the appropriate action, because some of the other ones may not have that job.
Yeah. But I think if they're very tight together, i.e., for example, the light display, I'm pretty sure they'll have some sort of emergency management type service built into the swarm, which brings them down without collision to each other.
Right.
And that might be a good example of where they should be treated as one.
And this is defined as, at least in Switzerland, the SORA and the risk assessment that you're doing. And then if you just add the use space level and plus the use space services level, I mean, I think, and I'm pretty sure that the operation is safe. So we will definitely support this, and I personally want this. I want to see this happening. And if you want to come in Switzerland and do it, I'll be happy to see this in real time and just like really say, okay, this is happening in Switzerland and we're part of it. So,
Okay, so that's a good offer if anybody wants
come to Switzerland.
to do that. Eszter, what do you think? Is it going to be a one-to-many sort of relationship operated drone straight away, or steps?
I already shared a lot of controversial opinions. Now I let the others who are experts on this, another thing.
Okay, so in terms of the drones themselves, if you think about single versus multiple, do we need extra sensor systems, extra technology on the drones to realize this? I'm personally thinking of, you probably need point-to-point communication between the individual drones. Laurie, what do you think about, is it just comms or different sensors, other technologies?
I think it could be all of the above. Nothing can be excluded, and I think it also depends on the size and the type of the use case going on.
Yeah.
But I think my point is that the technology is here now. I mean, we're doing that with MatrixSpace, and I think that I just think we need to give some things a shot here and really see what's happening, and particularly when there's safe corridors. I think the risk is really mitigated, and I think the industry, the people, the public will be very, very surprised about the ROI return and the value.
Yeah.
So, but I do think it can be a combination of whether it's sensors or whether it's a network, whether it's the mesh overlay. And once again, I want to repeat, you do not have to go to the cloud. There is another way. So,
and I guess having more compute power on the drones themselves is a thing that's going to happen anyway, because processing data in real time, making real time decisions is kind of a direction that the industry is trying to go in anyway.
Decision making at your fingertips, then and now, here and now.
Yeah, very good. Anything to add from a regulator or UTM perspective, just on the technology?
I think it's just, it needs to be the technology, it needs to be the service. It can, in my opinion, it's not only one piece.
Right.
Yeah.
It needs to be the whole system that needs to be changed, and that we need to work toward also to the technology, the sensor, the drone itself, but the system needs to also to be changes. And I think if we put all these pieces of the puzzle together, we can go to full automation at least.
Yeah, but again, the message is the same. You need to build today something which goes towards to that 2028 in Europe, Because if now in 5 years we're coming and say, now let's change the whole system. It's so my message is, as of today, I think we need to be making conscious decisions, and build towards to that, the solutions what we are building today, This is how only automation gonna come,
So it may be a good time to introduce. We're doing a project in the UK, but also trialing in Netherlands as well. Something called Skyway. If you come across this is the drone superhighway concept. It's something we're deploying 165 miles of this year between Reading and the Midlands in the UK. And it's got ground-based sensors. So it's a ground-based detect and avoid type solution that can be used now, and it is going to gradually introduce. It's that first step into automation. Doesn't prohibit manual operations at all. They will be welcome as well. But the automated drones that fly within the corridor itself will be provided navigation guidance by the UTM, and then the drone itself, whether it's a single-use or multi-use drone, will be able to implement those instructions as their OEM defines it should be, whether it be a land, a hover, a loiter, a coordinate. It's something that's there, and we'll be testing this year and next.
So that's already kind of geared up to work with multiple drones versus single.
Exactly. So, I mean, as I said, you can either define it as a single cluster of drones, and we'll treat it as one. Although, again, to maximise use of airspace, if it's over a wide area, that's not the best solution in our view.
Sure.
Or it could be identified individually. I think the most important piece, though, is that each of the drones, either directly or indirectly, can communicate through to the UTM.
Yep.
Perfect. Very good. Okay, we have time to take some questions. If anybody has got a question, you've got a hand there at the back, please.
Thank you. So apologies if this was mentioned before, but I would love to hear some sort of explicit use cases where a swarm of drone operation would actually benefit that use case. I mean, I can imagine drone delivery. You wouldn't need a swarm to deliver, I don't know, groceries, but what are we looking at that seems foreseeable in the future?
Yes, I think agri-tech was one example that we sort of covered. So if you're inspecting a field of crops, if you've got 10 drones, in theory, you could do it 10 times quicker than a single drone. But other use cases maybe that people have thought about since we...
Search and rescue is one that I'm really quite passionate about. The ability to locate someone in trouble over a wide area in the quickest possible time with drones is a great example. Again, I wouldn't necessarily call it a swarm. I would say it was a fleet of cooperating drones. But that is a really powerful use case that I think will really improve outcomes.
So I mentioned one about firefighting. I think that's very, very important, as well as when you start to have natural disaster areas, being able to go out and inspect and see what's happening in a rapid manner and be able to make some rapid decision making. So even before it happens.
Thanks. Good question. Any other questions? The gentleman at the back.
Thank you. Just a note from my side. I think we are not talking only about swarm operations. Multiple drone operations is not always a swarm. It's just plenty of drones operated by different operations. So it's kind of multi-agent system which is self-organized. So that's why we don't necessarily need to look exactly for swarm use cases. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, it's an interesting perspective. Could, from a UTM perspective, if you've got maybe drones operated by different operators collaborating, is that?
Yes, that's a critical component of UTM, right? It's otherwise you could just manage if you've only got your fleet.
But in a way where they can kind of collaborate autonomously to a degree, or is that outside of the realm of UTM?
I think, I mean, again, just picking up on autonomy, I think if they're going to work independently of one another, then that is not going to be the best outcome, in my opinion. I think you can have an individual fleet operated by one company working together. I think if you're going to cooperate between multiple fleets, then going through some sort of coordination orchestration is probably the solution that's going to come to the top with a UTM.
Yeah, maybe the thing is, this is where we see the limit of use space. If we have multiple operators, so different operators plus different drone operating in the same airspace, so the use space regulation is foreseen now that you cannot have multiple drone operation, even performing VLOS, in the same volume of airspace because you have this US flight authorization service, which do not allow this. So if we now take the regulation per se, the U-Space, the EU U-Space regulation, this cannot happen, multiple operators with multiple drone. So this is where we see the limit, and this is what actually we're working on in Switzerland to scale, and maybe not to have only U-Space airspace, but more focusing on U-Space services, U-Space services everywhere, and having this operation-centric approach and not this airspace-centric approach.
Yeah, maybe I think now we're talking about so far in the future, right? Like, I think we should start to get back a little bit and start to understand what can we automate today, and I'm back to my first statement, like, this is a lot of small puzzle and we already can automate, certain things, and I would love that we start to do that already, we don't wait for a upgraded use space regulation, because if we need to wait for that, we're never going to go anywhere, it's a chicken and the egg again. So I think now we have in Europe great regulation. I speak it out. I like it. I think it's better than a lot of other countries. I think it enables a lot, We have U-Space, as Amanda said, we have already drone regulation now 2 years.
Yep.
We have a lot out, so start to use it, start to learn it, start to understand what is possible with that regulation as of today, and start to operate. That's my message. And start to make the first revenues and the first actions towards automation, the puzzle, and and I think like this, there will be a lot of case to progress. But if we are still waiting for this investment money pumped in more and more and more and pointing on the regulation, somehow this bubble gonna, just collapse. So I think now in Europe, this is a good place to start to do things, generate revenue and scale with a mindset of these puzzles and automation going to the future, And that's what I think as of today.
So yeah, I wouldn't argue against any of that. I think it is all about taking steps. But
yeah.
So just to kind of wrap up and bring things to a close, just a quick minute for everybody on the panel. What do you think the next steps are to realise multi-drone operations? Who wants to start?
I can go first if you like.
Please.
So I think the businesses and the public services that are going to utilise the multiple drones will be those that drive the business requirement. Okay, so working with organisations, and I use one here in the Netherlands, Armour Bay is doing some great work with medical deliveries in a trial, which I think was announced 2 or 3 weeks ago. These are the sort of use cases which can really drive adoption across the industry. So making it real, to your point, let's use the regulations that are there to get it out in space. But I also think we need to continue to push really hard on the regulation, because unless we tell the regulators what we want in the future, we'll wait many, many years for that to come to fruition. So we need to continue working in partnership across the board to make that happen. But yeah, just to wrap up, definitely let's get out there, use the technology that's available today. Really keen to push our Skyway technology as well. That's something that I think is revolutionising the way we take to the airspace, and I think some of these multi-use case drones will be part of those projects.
And from my side, it's about cooperation, right? So working with one another, working with the regulators, sitting down around the table, having strong, fruitful discussions, starting to adopt in these quarters, and that's what I think is going to move.
Yeah, and I would say to the industry, don't be afraid to come to the regulators and first, as I said, there's a regulation, implement it, use it, and if you see that something is not working, come to us and say this is not working, and then we can work together to find a solution. In Switzerland, we learn by doing, so this is why we always want to implement something and then to see what is not working and then try to change something, but we cannot do it. It's on the industry to do it. So just come to us, and this is how we can build the future of.
Perfect.
And I think what I can relate to Amanda is that we're both in Switzerland. Probably this is why we are related. But I love data-driven decisions. I think when you go to the regulator, you need to be able to assess, already do it, bring back outcomes, not have theories anymore. I think we are over that time when theories works. Now there is a regulation, try it out, have feedback, and bring it back. That's one thing which I would suggest. And another thing is you cannot imagine, I open my mailbox and I get 10,000 email every month about, I did a demonstration here, can you put it in your portal? I did this demonstration here, can you put it in my portal? I don't want to see demonstrations anymore, I'm not putting it out because I'm here 8 years. I've seen enough demonstrations, I want to see working projects in collaboration with regulator, of course, but I want to see something which creates revenue. I want to see something which makes sense, which has a public safety benefit or one kind of measurable benefit, compared to other things. I want to see demos for new technology, which I haven't seen already 10,000 times, So I think that's my other message is now start to think about implementation and demonstrations which not done yet, and because there is no point to repeat, what we already know.
Yeah, well said. So get real, I think, is the message there. So I think this certainly has the it's an incredibly exciting industry. It's got the potential to be truly transformative, and maybe multi-drone fleets are a part of that future. So don't be constrained by current thinking. I think it'd be my message to take away today. So fascinating discussion, and thank you very much to the panel for part of that.
Thank you.